Hello, friends. I had my mic muted the whole frickin' time. Oh, God. Why? Why? Okay, well, it's Monday. That's why. Let me try that again. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TEDXcellence, the show in which I still can't seem to get it right, even though I was supposed to check the microphone like I usually do, but for whatever reason, I didn't today. What a start. What a start. But I am here, in my Corona bunker, on the moon, with Dog, Cat, Fox, a Pepper Jack, and now a functional microphone. Yeah. Well, get my embarrassment out of the way early, I suppose. You know? Oh, what a day. So far. And, hey, everybody. How you doing? Did you enjoy those 2 minutes of silence from yours truly? Or 2 minutes and 10 seconds thereabouts? Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, because that was all you're going to get from me now, because I'm going to be talking the whole time. I got to make up for lost time, as in those last 2 minutes. But here to enjoy my embarrassment along with me are all of you. Humble Clay, hello. Cultist 4, hello. John Miller, hello. Midday Sun, hello. Dark Alile, hello. Joe Faps, hello. Asian Hippie, hello. Nothing for you here, hello. Somnumation, hello. Chris R, hello. Graf Spree, hello. Evil One, hello. That One Servant of Satania, hello. The One Ton Hammer, hello. Viror of Ashmedai, hello. Molly Mags 53, hello. Jormungandr, hello. Roger Reynolds, hello. Let's see. Angela Ariaga, hello. Eric Grunstadter, hello. Who's next? Scrolling down. This is Kyle, hello. Saniko, hello, if I'm saying that correctly. Saiyan Wizard, hello. Let's see. Thrashy, hello. Straight Sith Male, hello. And then the chat jumped. The Luke Skywalker 2, hello. Manic, thank you so much for the Dog, Cat, Fox. Hiya. John Miller, thank you so much. The greatest intro we never heard. Hi, Scribe. Oh, you heard it, because I just basically repeated it except for the sobbing. This is Kyle. Thank you so much. Hello, chat people and scribbles. Also seems like you're taking a page from Monkey's book. Yeah, well, you know, you spend enough time around that guy. Osmosis. What can I say? Osmosis. Let's see. Andrew Joyner, hello. Swan732, hello. Shrouded Angel, hello. Woodcutta, hello. Spittlebuggies, hello. Shio Gorath, hello. All right. So, after 2 introductions, one of which you heard, let's talk about what we're going to talk about. So, what is the official title of today's presentation? Well, the official title is Breaking Down Barriers: The Need for More Women in Surgical Specialties. The need for more women in surgical specialties. Okay. So as the thumbnail meant to express, diagnosis, equality. Aspienti, hello. So, yeah, let's get into this one. I was thinking, and this has been suggested before, I think I'm going to make up a TEDx bingo card, because after the last episode, actually the last couple episodes, there's been not the last episode. The guy talking about the principal at the school. That's the one I'm thinking of, because he swooped in with a whole bunch of buzzwords that I wasn't expecting. So now I don't know exactly how that would work for this, except for maybe just your at-home enjoyment, I guess, because since I'm not using different video processing thing, I can't really display the bingo card and update it as we go, but I'm thinking about it. So I'll let you guys know. I'll cook up a graphic or something and tweet it out, or put a link to it somewhere, and we can follow along together in future episodes and see what we come up with. But let's do this. let me play a little bit of this. You tell me if you can hear it, because that is really important for this whole process. And then we will proceed. So we need more female surgeons. I'm ready to be sales pitched at. Let's begin.
I was in my 3rd year of dental school.
I was in my 3rd year of dental school. And now I'm going to start my drink, because I'm going to need it. And for no other reason than my own stupidity. Sounds good to some emulation. Good, says One Ton Hammer. Straight says Mail says, gonna shut up a bit drunk. Oh, okay. Sound we can hear, Scribe. Yes, Evil One. Thank you. Okay. All right. So she was in her 3rd year of what? Dentistry, was it? Dental school?
About to start surgical extraction of my first wisdom tooth when I felt a man behind me.
You felt a man behind you. How did you know it was a man? Was he happy to see you?
He pressed his body into mine,
Oh.
and his arm circled around me.
Oh, no.
His hand took hold of my hand that was holding the surgical blade.
Oh.
I slowed my breathing and finished the surgery.
With his hand on yours the whole time? Wait. I'm just visualizing this. You started doing wisdom teeth extraction, and a man stands behind you and holds your hand throughout the entire thing? That's bizarre.
And said nothing.
Why?
The man behind me was an oral surgery resident.
Okay. And why didn't you say anything? And there's some kind of tweeting or squeaking in the background of the audio. I hope that doesn't persist.
I feared if I complained, he and the other oral surgeons would retaliate and block my applications to oral surgery residencies.
So you chose not to say anything out of fear for your career. Okay.
After that incident, I thought long and hard about whether I wanted to pursue my dream of becoming an oral surgeon.
Okay.
Did I really want to work in an all-male dominated field?
I don't know. Is that really the problem, or was it that individual who was a problem? Because, you see, you didn't say anything. So if this guy was doing creepy things to other people, no one was knowing about it, and no official action was being taken because you remained silent. So is it that you have a problem with that guy that acted inappropriately, or are you just a sexist? I guess is the question. Thank you, Johnny Hellcat. That's too many hands for one mouth. Yeah, again, the image in my head of what you described, there must be a beat or something missing in that story.
Did I really want to put up with the harassment and the discrimination?
I'm sorry, discrimination? You're the one asking whether or not you wanted to be in an all-male field or a male-dominated field. Is the problem you have with men who are inappropriate, or is the problem you have just with men?
Did I have any idea of just how hard it was going to be?
I haven't heard from anyone I know that's gone through any kind of medical school that it's been easy. I haven't heard from anybody who's going into a field where their sort of person isn't generally seen as being easy. But as far as being an oral surgeon, a dentist, I am honestly straining to think of a dentist in my past that wasn't a female. And I'm not talking about just like the lady who cleans your teeth kind of thing, like a dental assistant or something, or, but the actual owner of the business. I think I'd have to go back to when I was 6, maybe, something like that.
No, but I decided I wanted to be an oral surgeon.
Okay.
So I persisted.
Okay, and you were stopped or something?
Despite the unequal treatment with the 5 other dental students that were interested in oral surgery, they were allowed to take overnight call with the residents and spend time in their office.
I don't know. Overnight call? Is that like apprenticeship? Wait, overnight call for being is there a lot of call for dentists overnight? I mean, I guess if there's like an emergency or like a car accident or something, but okay.
I was not.
Why? Because you were female?
I couldn't change their behavior, but what I could do was work hard and prove that I was good enough to be accepted into an oral surgery program.
Wait. Were you not invited to do the overnight thing because you're female, or were you not invited because you didn't meet some qualifications? Just saying you weren't and not telling us why is stepping towards that whole God of the gaps theory of statistical analysis.
I found a local oral surgeon who allowed me to spend time in his office and in the hospital with him.
Okay.
And I completed an internship with the Navy oral surgery program.
Okay.
I was offered multiple interviews.
Okay, all of this sounds like you found a path to fulfilling your dream. And?
In one of the interviews, I was just told that I was filling a mandate, that they had no interest in actually accepting a woman.
I find that hard to believe, but okay, I'll take you at your word.
At another program, I had a senior oral surgery resident guarantee me he could get me into his program if I spent the night with him.
Oh, okay. Well, that must mean that every dentist out there is like that, huh? Oh, sorry, every man.
And despite discrimination laws, every one of the interviews I was asked, was I married? Was I planning to get married? Did I have children? Was I planning to have children?
Yeah, you know why they asked that? You know why they asked that? Can you imagine why they asked that? Can you imagine a particular, biological reality and or, let's say, logistical difficulty that might arise in your situation, being what you are and being that you are interviewing for a job at a place that has appointments and schedules and so on and so on? Can you imagine why they might be asking that? Is it sexist or is it pragmatic? You know, is it sexist or is it pragmatic?
And what would I do if I got pregnant? The men were not asked these questions.
The men weren't asked what they would do if they got pregnant? Oh my God!
I matched an oral surgery program at the Hospital St. Raphael with Yale New Haven Hospital, and the photograph you see is me operating with my program director.
Okay.
The discrimination and the harassment continued during my 4 years of residency. And it continued in the 9 years that I served as a board-certified oral and maxillofacial surgeon and a commander in the United States Navy.
Okay, and you reported all of this to your superiors, yes?
And it has continued in the almost 4 years that I've been in private practice.
Okay, in private practice? If you're in private practice, well, I suppose you could be working for somebody. You reported all of this stuff, right? Because that first instance back when you were in school where you didn't say anything, that informed you that you should have said something. So you have reported these incidents throughout the course of time, yes?
You see, women in healthcare, and specifically women in surgical specialties, we were taught to be thankful that we were allowed into the good old boys club. And we had to constantly prove that we were tough enough. We were assumed a liability until we could prove otherwise.
Yes, and men are never subjected to such assessments by other men or other women. Sure.
According to a 2018 report, National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, 80% of medical students have reported sexual harassment.
Okay, that sound breaking up is original video. So if that continues to any great degree, I might just call this here because, like I say, I don't watch these things before I start broadcasting, except to check basically that the sound quality isn't terrible. So obviously when I checked the first couple of minutes or so for sound, there wasn't any big problem. But if that keeps up, I'll call this, and I won't be happy about it, but I don't want to subject you or myself to lousy audio like that.
In academic medicine, 70% of women have reported sexual harassment.
Okay.
Despite the fact that both medical and dental schools are now 50% men and women, only 37.6% of women make up the American College of Surgeons.
Okay, now, just pausing here. Is that because women are being discriminated against? Or is that because a lot of women choose family over career? The operative word there being choose. So, while there may indeed be, and I'm not going to argue that there is, sexual harassment in the workplace, name your industry, it happens. Is the end result of the number of surgeons or surgical professionals that are either male or female, is the end result of that statistical disparity inherently discrimination? Or are there other factors involved? And is our speaker asserting that the disparity between the number of male surgeons and the number of female surgeons is wholly based on either harassment and or discrimination? Because her saying it the way she did makes it sound that way.
And only 8% of the American Association of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgeons are women.
Is that by choice or is that by design?
Why are there so few women in the surgical specialties?
That is a very good question. Please tell us your answer.
Well, the women I knew didn't think of it as an option, or they didn't want to put up with the harassment and discrimination.
So they chose not to go forward. Okay. Did they take any action to try to address this by reporting the behavior? Maybe because they shouldn't be scared out of their dream or their career by a couple of assholes? Maybe.
Or they didn't want to be told they'd have to delay starting a family.
Oh, okay. So the needs of the career would have interfered with their desire to become mothers. So they had to choose which is their priority. Okay.
When I started my program, I was told I was not allowed to have children until I finished my program.
Okay, well, and did you? I don't know.
Which meant that I was 31 years old starting a family.
That was your choice. No, nobody held a gun to your head. Okay, now I am going to, in the abstract, press X to doubt that you were told you're not allowed to have children. I am guessing that someone said, starting a family in the midst of this situation would be detrimental to your progression. Something like that. Because if you're going to take however many months or whatever off from your training, from your schooling, whatever, to focus on raising a family rather than on your career, you will have a speed bump in your progress. It's unavoidable. So if you were given advice that starting a family now would be detrimental, I don't think they were lying.
I still to this day, almost 13 years after finishing my oral surgery residency, have people say to me, "You were the first female oral surgeon I have ever heard of."
Horse hockey. Absolute horse hockey. The couple of times that I've actually had to go in for periodontal surgery, which hasn't been that many, okay, thankfully, yet, but, you know, time goes on. Who are the surgeons? Females. Every dentist's office I can think of right now, save for, again, maybe when I was like 6 or 7, the lead dentist, the name on the door, female. So, horse hockey. Absolute horse hockey. And why do I say horse hockey instead of something more biting? I don't know. I just remember the character from MASH, played by what's his name from Dragnet, who replaced Blake after Blake died. He used to say horse hockey, and I always thought that was a great exclamation. I think it's funny. Anyway, a little bit of trivia for those of you that just need more evidence that I'm old, or at least watched a lot of old TV.
While women make up over 80% of the healthcare workforce, the decision makers, including the hospital leadership, executives, and presidents, are largely men.
And their genitals disqualify them from their positions, I guess.
So how do we attract more women into the surgical specialties? And how do we support them so that they can be successful, to be our decision makers and leaders?
But why do the decision makers and leaders have to be of one gender or another? I mean, long-term residency. So, and again, I'm not an expert. I've never gone to medical school. I have some friends who have. But if you're going to put in the time and the dedication necessary to become a surgeon, whether you're talking about oral surgeon or otherwise, you've got lots of school, you've got lots of like interning, lots of residency, and so on and so on. You've got time and focus dedicated to this task and to this goal for many years. And a lot of money spent on education and so on, so you can get to that point, right? It has to be a passion. It has to be something that you're willing and able to do. And if you decide in the midst of that you want to have a family, if you choose to get pregnant, if you choose to have a family, if you choose to raise that family, you're making a choice to divert your attention from something that requires a lot of attention and time. So if more women than men decide that setting aside raising a family or having children is not as desirable an outcome as they want for their life, what are you going to do? Are you going to say, women, you're not allowed to get pregnant until you become a surgeon? I mean, what is your solution? That is really what I'm looking for here, because I kind of knew what the premise was coming into this, obviously, but I'm always curious. What is the answer when it comes down to a matter of choice? How are you going to achieve the demographic outcome you want, short of press-ganging people into service?
Things aren't going to change unless there's a call to action.
Okay, and that action is what?
We need more women in the surgical specialties.
Need is not the word. I have this little joke with my mother every year around Christmas time. I say, Mom, what do you want for Christmas? And she says, oh, I'm fine. I don't really need anything. And I say, Mom, Christmas isn't about need. It's about want. What do you want, Mom? Need more women. Why do we need more women? Why don't we just need more surgeons? Right? You want to talk about equality? Just have highly trained, skilled, dedicated people, regardless of what's between their legs, in the surgical fields. That should be it. You want more women. You don't need more women specifically. You want more women. You want the demographics to be aesthetically pleasing to you. But anyway, I digress.
First, we need mentors.
Are those mentors going to be mentors? Because, I've been told, or at least had insinuated to me, that men are the problem.
Those of us that have shattered the glass ceilings and broken down barriers need to lead the way.
Oh, okay. So only women should be advising women. Got it.
Second, we have to implement sustainable family planning and childcare.
Okay. And I don't know the extent of family leave laws and things like that. So is there room for improvement there? Is there something that isn't currently part of the legal, landscape? Please tell us.
Lastly, we have to end the gender discrimination, sexual harassment, assault, and bullying.
That's a long list. Some of that is relatively subjective. Okay, and all right, so those are your goals. What are your ideas in achieving those goals?
As I mentioned earlier, 37.6% of the American College of Surgeons are women, while only 8% of the American Association of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgeons are women. even though both medical and dental schools are 50% men and women.
Well, you're talking about different stages in a progression of a career, aren't you? From school to professional to ending up on some executive board or some kind of advisory board. It's not all happening at the same time. And so what happens in between school and hitting your professional peak? What happens in between? Life. And so if a woman decides midway through that they would rather raise a family than dedicate the time, energy, money, etc., stress, anxiety, and so on into a surgical career, and that's bad, why? Why can't both of those various paths be okay?
Our medical colleagues have done a better job of supporting and mentoring women into and through the surgical specialties.
Okay.
One of the ways that they have done this is in 1981, they established the Association of Women Surgeons.
Oh, okay. So there's an entire association specifically for what you're talking about. Okay. Got it.
This is to engage, empower, support, and mentor women.
Since 1981. Okay, so this foundation's been in place for, oh dear God, let me do some math, 39 years thereabouts as of this recording. Okay, so nearly 40 years. We'll just round it off, say 40 years. 40 years it's been around, and 40 years thereafter, the statistics still aren't to your liking. Okay.
From medical school through retirement.
Uh-huh.
Women like myself have to give back to our professions and work to support other women.
Okay. If you decide to.
Medical centers typically do not have sufficient policies for pregnancy and childcare.
Wait, sorry. I want to make sure I heard that correctly. They have what, or they don't have what?
Medical centers typically do not have sufficient policies for pregnancy and childcare.
Typically. Okay. And where is the division between what the law requires and what is left up to the employer? I mean, you have to set a baseline, like this is what is currently being provided by law, and then how is that deficient? You can't give us a solution until you articulate the problem.
Making it difficult for women to balance motherhood and work.
What about men balancing fatherhood and work? Does that ever come into play at all?
When I was 28 weeks pregnant with twins, I developed severe anemia.
Okay.
I had trouble walking up a flight of stairs, and I couldn't stand to operate for more than an hour.
Okay, so your pregnancy created difficulties in you working, fulfilling your job requirements. And you wonder why they were asking you in your interview if you were planning on getting pregnant. Got it.
I was put on modified bed rest and half days of work.
Right. You couldn't work full time. Got it.
This allowed me to continue working until the day I delivered twins.
Yeah, but not working to the full extent of your job description and the requirements to, fulfill your job duties. Which is why they were asking you when they interviewed you whether or not you're planning on getting pregnant. Because if they're going to hire you, they have to take that into account in scheduling, in training, and so on. Because they're hiring you to fill a gap in their needs as a business. And if you're not going to be there to fill that gap at some point, they need to know that. Oh, but no, that's sexism, guys. That's not just the pragmatism of business. Says the person who's now in private practice. I wonder if she has ever asked a potential employee if they plan on getting pregnant. I wonder if that's ever come up.
Healthy at 35 weeks.
I am glad your children were born healthy. Congratulations. It has absolutely nothing to do with your presentation or your argument, but congratulations on bringing out your kids to get an applause line. Good for you.
Thank you. Any woman that has ever been pregnant or delivered a child will tell you that it's challenging.
Uh-huh.
And they call it labor and delivery for a reason.
Uh-huh. So these are understood aspects of becoming pregnant, are they? Well, okay.
There have to be policies in the workplace for pregnant healthcare providers that will allow flexibility of hours for appointments, complications, and basic needs like nutrition, hydration, and rest so that they can deliver healthy babies like their patients.
I don't disagree, but what does that have to do with the number of female surgeons? Okay. And also, and I don't know the answer to this question, which is why I'm waiting for her to tell me. What is currently insufficient in law, both federal and thereafter state, whatever, that is not accounting for any of this? Because if you're going to present these things as problems, you need to describe the particulars of the problem. There are federal laws that allow for family leave. There are state laws that allow for family leave and family concern, etc. There are laws in place to provide people the opportunities to take care of their families that employers must abide by. Okay? Now, are those laws adequate? I don't know. I've never had to raise a family. I've never encountered whatever the difficulties there are of doing so under the law. So now you're going to tell us what needs to be done to improve that situation. But that aside, what does any of that have to do with the number of women in surgical positions? Because all you're doing right now is giving us a very good argument for why some people might choose not to focus on a highly intensive, highly focused, highly stressful career in becoming a surgeon and instead focus on their family. Thank you, John Miller. If only 38% are medical surgeons, how come over 60% of colleges are women? Well, I mean, if you're talking about college degrees, the same question I ask every time I hear that statement. College degrees in what subjects? You know, you can have 5 million bachelor's degrees in art history, and they might all be women. And then you say, how is it that this industry, whatever, has so few women in it when this number of women graduate with degrees? And almost to a one, they never articulate degrees in what. They just say women get more college degrees than men every year. Well, a degree doesn't mean anything unless you know what to do with it or if you can leverage it. You know, I mean, as far as like finding a profitable job, I'll take one chemical engineering degree over 1,000 gender studies degrees. Hey, hell, I'll even detriment myself. I'll take one chemical engineering degree over 1,000 English degrees if you're looking for like some high-level, high-paying job. I don't have any illusions that I set myself up for, you know, mediocre tax bracket if that was my concern. It wasn't, but, you know, I know the reality of my own situation. I'm not sure if our speaker knows the reality of anyone else's situation that isn't her.
How many women do you know that were career women that decided to stay home once they had children because childcare is so expensive?
Just on the basis of the expense of childcare, and not because they wanted to raise their children, they wanted to be housewives or mothers or whatever. Honestly, I can't think of that many. I don't know, or it's never come up, I should say, in conversation. Most women I know who have had kids wanted to raise their kids. If it was a financial consideration completely, that would be a rarity in my experience, but then my experience is only anecdotal.
Our twins were born while we were living in San Diego, and there were no openings in any childcare facilities for 2 newborns.
Okay, so I don't know where the story's going.
We had to borrow money and hire a nanny so that I could return to work at my 8 weeks postpartum.
Oh, so you paid for childcare, you paid for a nanny, so you could go back to work. Okay, well, you could afford to do that, and that was your choice. A lot of people can't afford to do that. But then again, a lot of people aren't necessarily looking to go back to work. A lot of people like being mothers at home. You know, I don't fault you for wanting to be a career woman. I also don't fault anybody who wants to stay home and raise their kids. Sounds like you are, though.
Even once we got them into childcare, the hours were not conducive to my surgical hours. And
Oh, well, then, okay. Was your husband working at this time by any chance? Was he supporting the family in any way, shape, or form at all?
Still had to hire babysitters and nannies.
And that's the choice you made. You chose your career over raising your family. Not everybody can do that effectively. You were able to do so. In some instances, it's a matter of choice. In some instances, it's a matter of necessity. I don't know. You're one of those necessity ones. And
I remember an especially hard time when my husband was deployed and my nanny called out sick one morning.
so your husband was in the military. I'm going to guess the Navy, but I don't know. Okay, so your husband was working and you were alone at home doing your career and nannying off your kids. Okay.
My male colleague told me to put out a bowl of water and food and get to work. He wasn't joking.
Whoa, wait. Okay, I must have missed something. I'm backing up a little bit here because I have no idea the context of what she just said. It's probably the pepper jack.
Babysitters and nannies.
Yes, okay.
I remember an especially hard time when my husband was deployed.
Okay.
And my nanny called out sick one morning.
Okay.
My male colleague told me to put out a bowl of water and food and get to work. He wasn't joking.
I think he was joking. I think he was joking. It might have been gallows humor type joking, but I think he was joking. I don't think he was literally suggesting you put out a bowl of water and food for your children like they were dogs. I just have this feeling that unless this guy was an absolute psychopath, he was joking. Oh, yeah. Oh, the audience like, oh my God. Oh, how terrible. You're obviously telling the truth. Your interpretation of his words were totally true.
We need family-friendly policies with paid maternity and child-rearing leave.
Okay, and how is current law insufficient? I mean, company by company can have different policies or different standards on their own, but at the baseline of it, what does federal law and, just for the sake of argument, her local state law allow for and provide, and how is that insufficient? You have to articulate the problem if you're going to offer a solution. So far, you are just saying it is so, but you need to give us more details. I'm not a legal expert. I do not know all the ins and outs of family leave law, federally, statewide. You need to tell us these things. What needs to be improved that isn't currently being fulfilled?
Regardless of gender, sexual orientation, or adoption status for all new parents.
Regardless of gender? Because you seem to be focusing exclusively on one in all of your complaints.
We've got to have lactation rooms and on-site childcare services with emergency backup care.
So every company needs to have these things. You're going to mandate that every company have lactation rooms, on-site childcare. Okay, are all companies going to be required to pay for that themselves? I mean, does your dentist's office, does your dental practice have lactation rooms and on-site childcare? Do you employ childcare services 24/7 for your business? I don't know. Maybe she does. I have no idea. On-site childcare, like at the office. Okay. Thank you, tall person. Hoy, y'all. I just got home from work and we'll watch in full later. Happy Say Something Nice Day, everybody. Chat, I enjoy your company such as it is. Scribe, I like the sound of your voice. Well, tall person, thank you so much. Just a word of warning. You will not be hearing the sound of my voice for the first 2 minutes and 10 seconds of the video because I had my mic muted and didn't realize it. So that's on me, and I apologize. I'll put a note in the description so that people coming into the future will have some idea. Anyway, still waiting for some details on what the law does not currently provide for. Because if she doesn't do that, I'm not quite sure what to do with her wish list.
And we have to have better career flexibility and control of our schedules with flex times and ability to telecommute.
You want to telecommute as a surgeon? I mean, this talk is about getting more women surgeons, so, okay.
The story that I shared at the beginning is just one of many that I've experienced.
The man standing behind you and holding your hand throughout the entirety of a wisdom teeth removal surgery? Yeah, that story was something else because, like I said, I'm trying to imagine how exactly that worked logistically, and it doesn't quite track.
But it wasn't until the Me Too movement that I realized just how many other women had experienced similar situations.
Okay.
And had finally found their voice and were standing up and saying, no more.
Like you didn't in the story that you opened this talk with, where you told us very specifically you said nothing. At any point in the course of your career with all of these complaints of harassment, discrimination, and so on, I don't recall, and chat, correct me if I'm wrong, that you ever articulated that you did end up reporting any of these things. So if all these bad things happened and you took no action to try to rein in such behavior or to try to have such behavior punished, you haven't actually helped the situation, have you?
I found my voice when Time's Up launched as a response to the Me Too movement.
So in 2017 or near on to 2018, you found your voice after having been in the profession you've been in for years prior, experiencing all the harassment and discrimination that you say you experienced. You only found your voice because of Twitter. Okay.
And in February 2019, Time's Up Healthcare launched, and I decided to share my story.
2019, so 2 years after Weinstein and Me Too and everything else, after you'd been in the profession for who knows how many years, then you decided to say something. Got it.
I was selected to run the New York City Marathon this fall to support Time's Up and raise awareness for its mission.
And who can forget Nicole Eisenberg's brave run in the New York City Marathon? Who can forget it? Well, you'd have to know it happened in the first place, wouldn't you? So I'm sure no one's forgotten it. Thank you, Point Curation. We need a policy that keeps us young and fertile until after our careers. We need to change the law to remove biological inconvenience. Yeah. Deciding on life paths. Do you want to focus on your career and building up a business or a legacy for yourself in a working professional sense? Or do you want to focus on your family? I mean, you can do both. You can find a way to balance both. It's not easy, but then it never was going to be easy. Trying to do two drastically different things with two drastically different priorities and live a single life. You know, I mean, my parents did it. My mother raised my sister and I until we were of age enough that we could take care of ourselves when we came home from school. And then she went back to work. And she led a very productive career. My father never stopped working, except for that period of time where he couldn't find work. And we were practically out on the street at one point. But thankfully, through their hard work and labor and smarts, that was prevented. And my sister and I have never known want. Not because we didn't come close to the edge, but because my parents did not give up, even in the face of difficulty, even when my mother was the primary breadwinner for the family. My dad didn't just throw up his hands. And he also wasn't handed anything simply because he was a man or because he was white or whatever else. You know, people work hard. And sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want it to. And it's often not easy, especially with the slings and arrows and various vicissitudes of life that are thrown at you, whether it's in a professional sense or in a family sense. But you make choices and you hope for the best. So now that I've done my maudlin bit for a second, let's continue.
To have every healthcare facility sign a pledge to end discrimination and harassment.
Yeah, I'm sure there isn't a institution on the planet that wouldn't sign a pledge. And then you got the bad actors, the individuals that take horrible actions of their own accord. They make bad decisions and they screw things up for everybody else. And if you don't speak up about it, as our speaker chose not to speak up about it, apparently until 2019, those bad actors and that behavior is allowed to progress. You have to say something. Complaining after the fact that someone did something bad when you could have said something at the time just points out the fact that part of the problem is people not saying anything. And I'm not saying it's easy to speak up. I'm not saying that it is easy or necessarily advantageous to say something when someone's acting badly, depending on what position they're in. But the truth of the matter is, if nothing is said, then nothing changes.
Now, research shows that workplace discrimination against women physicians and surgeons is common.
Research shows. Are you going to cite that research? No. Do I disbelieve you entirely? No. But unless you actually cite what you're talking about, I can't assess it for myself. And it's a trust me story. I don't want any more trust me stories. I want facts, please.
Women are paid less.
No, they are not. They may earn less. They are not paid less. If you find an instance of someone being paid less who possesses the exact same qualifications and tenure as someone else, call the authorities.
We're disrespected by our colleagues.
Men are never disrespected by their colleagues. Men are never denigrated by their colleagues. It never happens. Ever.
Held to higher standards than our male peers.
Are you? Okay, do you have a study for that?
We're often addressed less formally, for instance, by our first names instead of our professional titles.
Often. How often is often? Okay.
And we're often not invited to speak at major events.
Often. How often is often? Or are you speaking from your own personal anecdotal experience? Because unless or until you cite something, I have to assume the former. Thank you, John Miller. Any more feminist propaganda you're going to spout? Who, me? I don't know. And, there's always a grain of truth, or more so, in things that claim like that. I'm not going to say that there's not sexism. I'm not going to say there's not discrimination. I'm not going to say that women are not treated differently than men. Can't say that because I know it's not true. Okay? There is. But to what extent it actually affects these things versus personal choice? I mean, purportedly, the point of this talk was to argue for more female surgeons. More females in the surgical fields, okay? She has cited problems or areas that she says need to be improved. But to this point, and taking her at her word, for the benefit of the doubt, for the sake of argument, taking her at her word that these are problems that need to be addressed, all right, where are the solutions? You have to articulate the problem and then tell us what your idea is to solve the problem. And we are 9 minutes, 42 seconds into a 12-minute, 44-second talk, and I haven't heard any solutions. I've heard complaints. I've heard I decided to have 2 kids and get a nanny because I could do that. I haven't heard any solutions.
Like talks and panels.
Uh-huh.
In June 2019, Dr. Francis Collins, the director of the National Institutes of Health, issued this statement on helping to end the all-male panel. He said, ending the manel begins at the top. Starting now, I expect a level playing field at public speaking events with a diversity of ideas, or I will decline to participate. And I challenge other leaders to do the same.
A diversity of ideas. So the quality of one's thinking is dependent on their genitals. Okay. I just want to make sure I understand what Francis Collins is trying to say. That it's the optics before the merit. All right. Thank you, Johnny Hellcat. Does a doctor demand they be called doctor every time? Seems a bit bitchy. I have known people who, once you know that they have a title, are very focused on having that title used when they are addressed. They believe they've earned it. Now, depending on the person and depending on the circumstances, I could see that. If someone is a, sergeant, or captain, lieutenant in the military or something, and you're in that kind of environment, obviously you address that person by their rank, unless you're in an informal situation or something, right? But simply knowing someone as a doctor, personally, if I knew someone as a doctor, unless I was addressing them formally, it would depend on the relationship I had with them. If I knew them personally, I might use their first name, right? If I'm addressing them professionally or formally, I might say doctor. But in and of itself, simply being a doctor doesn't really impress me anymore, because honestly, you could be a doctor in anything. Because what do I always ask in these TEDx's and other things? Somebody says, I'm Dr. XYZ. I say, doctor of what? Doctor of psychology? Doctor of astrophysics? Doctor of gender studies? Doctor of public health? Doctor of social justice? Having a PhD, doesn't necessarily impart some brilliance necessarily. But I don't know. It's a pride thing. It's a circumstantial thing. We read a story on Lords of the Night not too long ago about someone complaining about the fact that they weren't addressed as professor because they were a professor. They were addressed by their first name, and they thought that was disrespectful. And in my world, I might agree. If I did not know you on a first name basis, if I only knew you as a student, I'd probably say Professor Smith rather than, hey, John, or hey, Joan. That's just me, though. So anyway.
We need more leaders like Dr. Collins.
We need more leaders like Dr. Collins to equate genitals with quality of thinking. Okay.
They're committed to ending the discrimination and the bias against women.
Diversity does not mean women. You want diverse ideas? Then genitals are irrelevant. Who has the merit? Who has the experience? Who has something to say that, at least in the medical fields, has been published and or peer reviewed? If it happens to be a man, fine. If it happens to be a woman, fine. At least that's my opinion. But you're also talking about, and you've spent a lot of time telling us, that the majority of people in the surgical fields are men. So if the panel discussions at professional conferences end up being primarily, mostly, or all men, is that discrimination? Or is that just the odds?
In an October 2019 study by the American College of Surgeons, it found that 78% of female surgeons have experienced gender-based discrimination.
I'll take you at your word.
It also found that 90% of the men that responded did not feel that gender discrimination or sexual harassment were real issues.
Is that because 78% of female surgeons didn't report such things when they could have or should have? I mean, if they are unaware of the problem because nobody's saying anything, like you didn't say anything, can they be blamed for thinking there isn't a problem? You are your own worst evidence in this situation, honestly.
The author of the study, Dr. Gallagher, explained it. We found animosity towards the discussion of sexual harassment and aggrieved entitlement.
Is it just because, and I'm just going out on a limb here, that any such questions or inquiries into such were accusatory? I mean, if you just, and again, just going out on a limb, if you approach someone with a question or an interrogation that comes across as accusatory of bad acts, either being sexist or racist or homophobic or whatever, without any evidence, can you honestly be surprised if any animosity, any grievance, any anger might come about from that? If someone is accused of something they have not done or do not participate in, as though they are responsible for such, can you imagine that? And even setting aside that conspiracy theory, that assumption for a second, you haven't provided any more information on why that might be. You're just putting it out there and saying it's so, and allowing the audience to fill in the gaps. Once again, the God of the gaps theory of statistical analysis. Here's a number. Here's a disparity. I'll leave it up to you to figure out exactly what the problem is, all by itself. Right.
Michael Kimmel coined this term, aggrieved entitlement, in his 2013 book, Angry White Men.
Oh my God, aggrieved entitlement. Boy, oh boy, that could be a TEDx talk all by itself. I wonder if it hasn't been. I'll have to look that up. Gosh, a buzz phrase and someone who wrote a book with an obvious bias towards a particular race and a particular gender. Is this what you're offering? Is this the first thing you are offering up as a citation of proof for something? Because you've named practically nothing to this point, except for like one study and a couple of quotes. So a book, American Masculinity by the End of an Era. Wow. I wonder if Michael Kimmel, well, I could make some guesses, but anyway.
To help describe this, some men's defensiveness and anger that they felt that their rights were being taken away.
Really? in the post-Me Too world, in the paranoia over anything and everything that might be perceived of or accused of being inappropriate, becoming a career-ending circumstance. I mean, I don't know when this book was published, but a sense that those benefits that white men believed were their due have been snatched away. Really, is that how it is? Or maybe benefits that most human beings believe is their due, like the presumption of innocence, like being given a fair hearing, and so on. I'm just throwing that out there.
Of course, some may claim that these women are being overly sensitive.
Of course!
But a recent New England Journal of Medicine study found that medical residents that experience harassment or discrimination were 194% more likely to have burnout symptoms.
What? Wait, what? What does that have to... Hold on. I'm going to back up again because that just made my brain skip a beat. Let's try that again.
Medical residents that experience harassment or discrimination were 194% more likely to have burnout symptoms.
You just said medical residents. You didn't say female medical residents. And what does burnout symptoms have to do with the entitlement of white men? How does one track to the next there?
And 207% more likely to have suicidal thoughts.
Medical residents, so both men and women. So, what? I'm at a loss. I really am at a loss.
The most potent predictor of sexual harassment is organizational climate. The degree to which those in the organization perceive that sexual harassment is or is not tolerated.
Let's see. On its face, that seems like a reasonable statement. So, what would have happened if you had brought up your experiences with sexual harassment throughout your career? What would have happened if you had said something before 2019 about what had happened to you? Again, taking her at her word that she has been sexually harassed, physically abused, and so on and so forth throughout the course of your career. What would have changed, do you think, if our speaker had said something when something happened? She is not to blame for things done to her, but she is responsible for the choices that she made in response to what was done to her. So her silence throughout the course of her career contributed to the very thing that this statement is addressing. Is she or is she not going to take responsibility for her part in perpetuating the problem? And also, where are the solutions to the problem she listed? We're almost done with this, and she has not given any ideas as to where we're supposed to go with this.
How are those of us in healthcare supposed to adequately care for our patients when our own colleagues?
Okay, that silence is not me. That's the video. Oh, man. Please tell me they fixed this before she gets to her conclusion.
This broken glass window with XX was made for me as a gift from my sister-in-law.
Okay.
And it represents vitris fractus, which is Latin for broken glass.
Okay.
It's the name of my LLC. It's now in the wall between my private office and the main hallway in my practice, Knoxville Center for Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery.
Uh-huh.
And it's a daily reminder to me of the glass ceiling that I have shattered and all the work that still needs to be done. Thank you.
What an utterly pointless exercise. Absolutely without substance. A 12-minute tirade of nothing. Nothing. Complaints, uncited statistics, God of the gaps theories, and no solutions. At no point did she ever describe what the law currently provides for parents. I'll be more fair than she was and just say parents, and then say, here's how the law should be updated, or here's how the law should be enhanced to compensate for these factors. At no point did she ever say something of what kind of reporting system or what kind of changes to HR policy or something should take place or be implemented to try to counter the fear of employees reporting sexual harassment or inappropriate behavior or anything else. At no point did she seemingly have any remorse for the part that she played with her silence throughout the course of her professional career and, I'm assuming, her military career. And if someone can't afford a nanny, if the circumstances of their life, whether by their own choices or just, like I say, the slings and arrows and vicissitudes of being alive, if those don't allow for someone to get private childcare and they have to forego their career to raise their family, is that a sin on their part? And if it's not a sin on their part, well, again, how should the law compensate? What should private employers all be required to do to make up for such deficiencies as you describe them? What exactly was the point of this? I know, maybe I sound like I'm preaching to the choir sort of on this one. Like, what Scribe, why do you watch TEDx talks looking for answers or anything? I do. I'm not making that up. I'm not being facetious. You know, especially when it comes to somebody who is a professional, someone who is an expert, someone who has lived this situation. This lady is a Navy veteran. She is a professional dental oral surgeon. And she stands up on a stage. She has the opportunity to finally get off her chest everything that she thinks is wrong after years of her own professional experience. And what does she give us? I was talking about this in a previous episode. Why I read the voters pamphlet, right? When I'm deciding who I'm going to vote for, it's not based entirely on party. It's based on who is the person. What have they said? What are they planning to do? I read the voters pamphlet. I read the official statement by the candidate. I read it in detail. Do I see spelling errors? I mean, that's something that just comes up. But what's the content of their opening salvo to trying to get my vote? That's the best foot forward they're going to have, is making their pitch to me. Why should I vote for them? And this lady has the opportunity on an open stage, public forum, nobody's holding her back. And what's her best pitch? Nothing. I want to be surprised. I want to learn something. I want to have somebody argue something that changes my mind or gives me a new perspective on something. But why can't I get it? I'm not focusing on one individual here. It's professional after expert after authority figure, and on and on and on. We got principals, we got lawyers, we got doctors, we got educators. And why? Why? Carson, as my Gallic teacher would say. Anyway, I've talked long enough. It is now your time, chat. If you got some questions, comments, concerns, ideas of your own, please put them in the chat, and I will get to as many as I can, and then I'll wrap this up in the next couple of minutes, because I've already gone over the hour that I usually try to keep this to, which seems to be a pattern, but them's the breaks. Humble Clay says, voting is easy for me. I'm a one-issue voter. Okay, well, to each their own, I suppose. Nothing for you here. I'm with you on that. TEDx used to be a place of education, even if a bit unorthodox. They are just another propaganda outlet at this point, though, unfortunately. Look, I want to say, I look at a very narrow slice of what's available on TEDx. I have watched some good TEDx talks, just like I've watched some good TED Talks. I've also watched some very bad TED Talks, in my opinion, and obviously several bad TEDx talks. But it is a mixed bag. It really is. If I did TEDx, I do TEDx talks on subjects where my initial reaction to the subject matter is one of doubt, one of skepticism, one of like, And why do I watch these versus ones that are interesting or seemingly cover topics that I, might personally promote or support? Because I am looking to get my mind changed. Honestly, I'm not being facetious. I don't want to live in a bubble where I'm just believing without actually reading the article that the headline is all I need to know. So I read the title and I think to myself, boy, this sounds like some feminist propaganda. We need more women surgeons. This just sounds like, gender bias left, right, and center, and there's nothing to it, right? And I could believe that and move on with my day. But I take this aside. And I'm not trying to be like, I'm not angry at anybody or anything for bringing that up. I'm just saying that this is actually what I think about it. I want to know what is the latest and greatest take on this subject matter from someone who is a professional, from someone who's comporting themselves as an expert. If I'm going to have my mind changed, it's going to be coming from someone who knows what they're talking about on a subject that I'm a little iffy on, or on a concept that I'm a little skeptical about. So that's why I do this. And unfortunately, 99% of the time, nothing is offered that changes my mind or provides me any new insight or some kind of revelation. And my exasperation is sincere. Please change my mind. Really. Thank you, Joe Fapps. Make TED great again. TED, man, I tell you what, TEDx and TED, it's kind of hard to tell the difference between the two sometimes. Because TED used to be like the vetted, high level, this is going to be someone who really knows their stuff, is accredited, has some kind of name behind them, etc. And a lot of them do. But as you've seen on this series, more often than not, occasional TED Talk drops in. And if you didn't know that it was a TED Talk versus a TEDx talk, you'd be forgiven. Let's see. Some emulation says, mark this one, hashtag Pablum Scribelight. Yes, Pablum. You guys like that word? That's a good word, Pablum. It's a good word. Parody Bear. Meanwhile, a bunch of mindless false equivalency junkies are running through the streets, damaging our society, wounding our economy in an already troubled time. Well, yeah, the current events of the day, I hope I at least distracted you from for a few minutes, if nothing else, entertained otherwise. I'm trying to get past it because I'm going to be focusing on it for sure tonight on Lords of the Night. Assassin of the Gray, Scribelight, Dr. Scribelight, PhD in pepper studies, goldfish dynamics, and lunar exploration and resources development. That's right. That's right, guys. I have a virtual PhD in all of those things. I'm an expert. Truly, I am. Just wait for my next TEDx talk. Chicago Mike, we need more women surgeons. Stop studying gender studies and you will. There's that, and there's also just are you going to demonize someone who chooses family over career? Either by their open choice or just by the circumstances. This lady was able to afford and to arrange a nanny and babysitters so she could do her career while at the same time having kids at home being raised by paid assistants. I'm not trying to judge too much on that, but I'm judging a little bit on that. I don't know what to tell you. But that was her choice. That's her option. She had the ability to do that. A lot of people don't have the ability to do that. So if she's saying that the law needs to be changed to afford people the possibility and the chance to have childcare in order to pursue their career at the same time, okay, I'm open to the argument. What is the pitch? How is the law insufficient? How would you change it? Never heard any of that at all. I was waiting for it. Brought it up every time she made a list of complaints. She never said. Just that it needed to happen. Like, how? In what way? Who should be responsible for that? Who should pay for that? The government? Employers? Some other entity? What? Never said. Sorry, Jim, I'm late. I was out getting a big discount on a 70-inch big screen. Oh, now, Jim. You should know that if you decide to watch this from the beginning, there's about 2 minutes and 10 seconds of silence because I forgot my microphone was muted again. I own it. It's my mistake. I'll own it forever, obviously, because this isn't going anywhere. It's part of the record now. Let's see. John Miller says law versus cost. Well, I don't know what the law was, and I don't know what the cost would be because she never said. So nothing for you here. There was a nifty This was a nifty Oh, Pepperjack. The magic you do to my tongue sometimes. This was a nifty distraction, Scribe. Your commentary was worth it, even if the speaker wasn't. No, it is worth it. You know why it's worth it? The silver lining to each one of these things is I come away with at least a notion of what some of the thinking is in whatever industry or sphere of life that I'm looking at. This lady does not represent all dental surgeons, and she certainly does not represent all female dental surgeons. Okay. But somewhere in the mix of things that she was talking about is a line of thought in that industry and in discrimination complaints and the Me Too movement, etc. So each time I watch one of these things, even if they haven't convinced me of anything, even if they haven't given me a decent sales pitch for whatever it is that they're trying to do or say or conclude, I've learned something. It's all useful. And I'm going to keep looking at this stuff because it's important. I think it's important. I think it's important to look at those aspects of our lives that kind of run under the radar. The professionals you don't hear about, not the celebrities, not the politicians, the people actually in these spheres that we care about. Healthcare, education, business, and so on. Because these don't get reported on, and these are the things that continually end up being propagated or encouraged or supported or funded out of, I don't know, misguided virtue, an intention to do good things that is misplaced maybe, or not as well informed. So even if I think that the person talking hasn't offered anything new or hasn't actually offered any solutions, the fact that that's what they did in the position that they're in tells me something. Might not be a happy thought, but it's something. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this. As distracting as I hope it was. If nothing else, I hope it distracted from the insanity taking place on the streets at present in various cities across the country, because that's no fun. And it'll still be there when this is done, but maybe at least for an hour and a half or whatever, you guys had something else to think about. Thank you so much for your attendance. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you so much for your generosity. I cannot express to you how much I appreciate it. I hope everyone is having a good Monday. I hope you are all safe, especially given certain current circumstances. I hope you're all well. If you're not well, please get well soon. If you'd like to hear more from me on the current events of the day, you can find me over on Satsu 2 Senses channel tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for Lords of the Night, where myself, Satsu, and Ranting Monkey, and at least, for those of you that are paying attention when this is being recorded, and Chaos Eve. Wait, no, that's tomorrow. No, that's Tuesday on my night. My night, Tuesday, when I host the show, I'm having Chaos Eve as a guest. How the hell did I mix up what's happening on Satsu's I'm a failure. I mic my mute. No, I mute my mic. I mix up the days. Thank you, Manic, for the dog, cat, fox. Bye-bye, dog, cat, fox. I'm going to go not do this now because I don't know what I'm doing. Everybody, have a good day. Bye.